Hello, BookTube and BookTube friends. This is Glenn here at Glenn's Bookshelf. Thanks for turning into my video. I am going to do the Abraham Lincoln book tag. It was created by Bill Ruttenberg, and I will link to his video below. I came to Bill Ruttenberg's channel via Steve Donohue, and I will link to Steve Donohue's video as well. Okay, there are 15 questions, and before we get started, I just want to just give a qualification and a caveat. I am not a Abraham Lincoln scholar or historian or anything like that. I'm just a layperson, but I am a Abraham Lincoln enthusiast, and so I very much look forward to answering these questions. Okay, number one. What was your first book about Abe Lincoln? I don't know what the first book I had as a child might have been, or if I had one at all, but I have to think that this book, Lincoln, by David Herbert Donald, was probably the first book I bought that is in my current collection. It was published in 1995. I think for a number of years, it was regarded as the most well-known, the most significant Abraham Lincoln biography. It's possible that certainly the most known modern biography is maybe the word I would put on it. David Herbert Donald was a very significant historian of the Civil War, and he passed away in 2009. But this biography is very readable. It was, I think when this book was published, there had not been a Lincoln biography or a significant one for quite some time. And so this biography kind of is kind of the jumping off point for a lot of the more modern Abraham Lincoln literature, many books which respond to different questions and themes and conclusions that Donald raised. And so yeah, this is a book I've long had in my collection and have read it, and it's a very good read, very accessible. Again, sort of a birth to death story of Abraham Lincoln, as good a place as any to get started. Let's see, question number 2. What book sparked my interest in learning more about Abraham Lincoln's life? Well, I could probably just cite the book I just mentioned, but I will use this book instead. This is Team of Rivals, The Political Genius of Abraham Lincoln by Doris Kearns Goodwin. It was published in 2005 or 2006. It portrays Lincoln in relation to his main competitors for the 1860 nomination for president. That was, of course, William Henry Seward of New York, Salmon P. Chase of Ohio, and Edward Bates of Missouri. Lincoln would, of course, go on to win the Republican nomination for president at the Chicago Convention, and he would, in his presidency, bring each of these men into his administration. And so it forms kind of the structure of her book as she discusses not only the individual lives of these men, but how Lincoln managed these competitive currents in his administration and navigated the partisan politics of Washington, as well as administered the war effort. And this is one of the most significant modern biographies and stories of Lincoln. It's a great read. It's quite long, almost 800 pages, but this is a great book on Lincoln, and Kearns is Doris Kearns Goodwin is a great writer, and she's done biographies of LBJ and of Franklin Eleanor Roosevelt during World War II, and other significant works. She did a biography of Teddy Roosevelt, particularly in relation to his relationship with William Howard Taft. She's a very enjoyable author to read. And I might also say that I think the fact that the way that she told the story of sort of Lincoln's competitors kind of made them interesting characters in their own right. So her book not only kind of helped inspire a deeper appreciation and interest in Abraham Lincoln, but it also interested me more in learning about these other men who competed with and served with Lincoln, particularly Seward and Salmon Chase. And so I think I have Doris Kearns' Goodwin's book to kind of to thank for inspiring more of a Civil War research or Civil War reading interest, and in Abraham Lincoln and his key competitors and administrators in his government. So her book did a lot for my interest in Abraham Lincoln and these other major figures. Number 3, what is the best book about the childhood and or young adult life of Abraham Lincoln before he got into politics? That's a tough one. I don't have. There isn't like really one single book that stands out. I think several of the major biographies handle his early life fairly well. What we know of it. The book I'm going to suggest, though, is this one, Lincoln and His World, The Early Years, Birth to Illinois Legislature. Lincoln and His World is what I think is a 4-volume set, and I only have the first 2 volumes, but this volume, like it says in the subtitle, only is from birth to his years in the Illinois Legislature. Contains, I think, a bit more information about Lincoln's childhood and growing up years. So this is, I don't think this book or this series is all that well known. I'm kind of interested in learning a bit more about what other people think of this series. I actually did not watch the full video that Bill Ruttenberg did. I watched the first part of his video where he sort of explains where the inspiration for the video came from, but I didn't watch his direct answers to these questions because I kind of just didn't want to just respond to his answers. I kind of wanted to develop my own. And then I want to go back and watch his video and see how my answers compare to his and what I may have gotten wrong or missed. And but anyway, so I don't know if he talks about this book or series or not, but I'm looking forward to finding out. Number 4, book that best highlights Abe's personality. That was also kind of a tough question. Forgive me, I've got a whole stack of books with me, and I'm trying to sort them all out. I thought about doing this book tag right in front of my Abraham Lincoln bookshelf, but I just wasn't sure how the video would sound, and so I brought all the books from my collection onto my table here, and I'm trying to work through it. I think one of the books that will get the most attention in terms of Lincoln's personality is this one, Lincoln's Melancholy, How Depression Challenged a President and Fueled His Greatness by Joshua Wolf Schenck. This book came out in 2005 and I think is sort of the signature work amongst those books that address the issue of Lincoln's alleged depression or despondency, what his sort of mental makeup was, some of his biographies will, I think they do mention some sort of depressive episodes. And so this book, Lincoln's Melancholy, kind of gets into those issues. But I would also, for this question, respond, think of this book as well. This is Lincoln's Virtues, an Ethical Biography by William Lee Miller. It's not strictly about personality, as I think maybe Lincoln's Melancholy is, but again, it is about Lincoln's ethics, and his feelings in a way, and his sensitivities, and I just think it's I think as much as any other book that touches on Lincoln's personality and his thoughts and feelings and his sense of right and wrong. It's a very good book, and one I'm thinking maybe I would like to reread fairly soon. Number 5, the best political book on Abe. Well, I think a number of books would qualify on that account. Team of Rivals is subtitled, the political genius of Abe Lincoln. So, that book has at its center, Lincoln's political astuteness and how he handled his rivals and generals and so forth. But I think I would, for this question, I'll put forward this book. This is The Fiery Trial, Abraham Lincoln and American Slavery. Obviously, a significant part of Lincoln's political growth and the political challenge he faced was in regards to the subject of slavery. You think of the 1858 debates on slavery's extension and the Kansas-Nebraska Act that he had with his Illinois competitor, Stephen Douglas. And it covers, Lincoln's full life experience with and reaction to and understanding of the slavery problem, and how he wrestled with trying to limit slavery or lessen its worst features, the ways in which Lincoln responded to different challenges about slavery, and how he attempted to apply the law to limiting, restricting, or ending slavery in the different realms of American political life. And so, if you want a book that that addresses the slavery issue and the politics of slavery, then I would recommend The Fiery Trial by Eric Foner. Number 6, what is a book or two you bought at a Lincoln site, whether the Lincoln home in Springfield, Illinois, Lincoln's birthplace in Kentucky, or the Lincoln Memorial in D.C.? Well, I have not purchased any books at any of these sites. I have not been to the Lincoln home or the Lincoln birth site. They are on my wish list, on my bucket list, especially going to Springfield and seeing Lincoln's home. I would really like to do that, but I have not been to any of those places, and I have not bought any Lincoln books at any sort of national shrines. Number 7, what is the best book that showcases Lincoln's military strategy as Commander-in-Chief? I think this is a pretty easy answer. That is Tried by War, Abraham Lincoln as Commander-in-Chief. And it's by James M. McPherson, who is the author of Battle Cry of Freedom. That's the Oxford history of the U.S. Civil War. McPherson is a well-known Civil War author, has written several books on Abraham Lincoln, and this book is pretty exclusively tailored to looking at Abraham Lincoln's military strategies, how he grew in awareness of military dilemmas, and how the military should be used, and of course how Lincoln engaged with hired and fired various generals in order to push on the work of the Northern Army to put down the Southern Rebellion and to hasten the return of the Confederate States to the Union. This is a book that's not quite 300 pages, so I think it's a pretty accessible read, and I think it's answers the question about as well as any other book could, showcasing Lincoln's military strategy as commander-in-chief. Number 8, what is the best book if somebody wants to learn about Lincoln's family? Going through my pile here, I'm going to recommend The Lincolns, Portrait of a Marriage by Daniel Mark Epstein. This is a very enjoyable book, very easy to read, and talks a lot about Lincoln's courtship and marriage to Mary Todd of Lexington, Kentucky, and the family that they raise, the deaths of two of their sons, one before Lincoln was in the White House, and the other when Lincoln was president in 1862. Number 9, what is your favorite Lincoln book that details a year in the life of Abraham Lincoln? This is also another pretty easy one to answer for me, and that's Rise to Greatness, Abraham Lincoln and America's Most Perilous Year by David Von Drell. I'm going to pronounce his name. Now, if you notice, there is nowhere in this title the actual year, but the year is 1862. And so this book goes through the year of 1862 with a chapter basically for each month. 1862 was the year of the first sort of major clash in the Civil War at Shiloh, and that was in April, and culminating in the bloody Battle of Antietam in September, shortly after which he got rid of General McClellan. That was followed by another Civil War defeat at Fredericksburg, and the year ended with a rather serious threat to the Lincoln administration on behalf of from the Republican members of Congress who wanted to oust William Henry Seward and wanted a more aggressive prosecution of the war, among other things. And 1862 was obviously also when the Emancipation Proclamation was developed and proclaimed, which would take effect at the beginning of 1863. So this is a good book that is isolated on 1 year in the Lincoln presidency and the Civil War. So I heartily recommend Rise to Greatness. Number 10, what is your go-to book or books about the Lincoln assassination and the events surrounding it? I think I only have one book, and that is Manhunt, The 12-Day Chase for Lincoln's Killer by James L. Swanson. This was turned into a mini-series on Apple TV, and I think this is probably one of the better-known works that focuses on the assassination and the aftermath and attempts to catch the killers. So Manhunt. What is your favorite miscellaneous book about Lincoln that doesn't seem to fit into any one category? Really love this question. There are a couple. This is another question. It's very challenging one to limit oneself to one's book. But I'm going to give a couple offerings. But first, I'm going to suggest this. This is Lincoln Sanctuary, Abraham Lincoln and the Soldier's Home by Matthew Pinsker. Every summer or for a couple of summers during Lincoln's presidency, particularly after the death of his son Willie. The back cover here says Lincoln and his family fled the gloom and the humidity that hung over the White House, moving into a small cottage in Washington, D.C. on the grounds of the Soldier's Home, a residence for disabled military veterans. The Soldier's Home was north of the White House, pretty close to the border of Maryland. I believe that's a place you can still go to today. Not 100% sure, but yeah. But this is a pretty unique book that again sort of narrows the lens to a particular dimension of Lincoln's presidency and his domestic life. So I not really the kind of book that fits into a category very neatly, but I would include that book. And I would also include Lincoln at Cooper Union, the speech that made Abraham Lincoln president, excuse me, by Harold Hulser. Lincoln was invited to deliver a speech at the Cooper Union in New York City in February of 1860. It helped generate increasing interest in Lincoln's presidential campaign, and it was a speech that gave an intellectual and a constitutional justification for the Republican Party's proposed policy of restricting the growth of slavery in the country, and in particular, keeping slavery out of the territories and restricting it to the states in which it was then legal throughout the South. And so this is a really great book. There is, of course, a kind of a sub-literature in the Lincoln canon that deals with different speeches of Lincoln's. Obviously, there are books on the Gettysburg Address. I have a book on his Peoria, Illinois speech in the 1850s, again before he became president. And but this I think is a really good entry in that genre. So I would recommend this book as well. 12. What is a fun story you have relating to the purchase of a Lincoln book? I don't really have a fun story or a unique story or a funny story in which I came across a Lincoln book, but there is at least, I'm sure there are more, but there's at least one book that I think, because of kind of who the author is, that I think is at least kind of mildly interesting. Maybe not anyone today has heard of, but this is Lincoln's Preparation for Greatness, the Illinois Legislative Years by Paul Simon. Not the musician, not the songwriter, not the singer Paul Simon, but the Illinois politician Paul Simon. Paul Simon was served in the Illinois legislature throughout the 60s and 70s. In the 1980s, he became a U.S. senator, and he ran for president on the Democratic ticket in 1988, along with other luminaries such as Richard Gephardt, um, Mike Dukakis, who would go on to win the nomination that year. Gary Hart briefly was in the race and then dropped out and got back in the race. There was Bruce Babbitt from Arizona, and I think Al Gore. That was Al Gore's first run for the presidency in 1988, and Paul Simon from Illinois. And Paul Simon was one of the more sort of one of the most unique candidates for in presidential politics that I can remember. Not a big guy, very very nerdy looking guy, wore a bow tie. On the program Saturday Night Live, which of course did little skits of presidential candidate debates and so forth. The character of Paul Simon was played by Al Franken. Yes, that Al Franken, who was with Saturday Night Live for many years, and who would himself go on to be a U.S. senator from the state of Minnesota. And again, Simon was known for his bow tie, and he was kind of geeky looking. Just a very sort of different kind of presidential candidate, but very interesting guy. This book is from the 1960s. I think it's from 1965 was the year it was first published, and just talks about Lincoln's time in the Illinois legislature, which, of course, Simon as a legislator, 100 plus years after Lincoln, was sort of in a unique position to write about. And again, not really a funny story about my purchase of the book, but I think just sort of a somewhat amusing, culturally kind of interesting, surrounding this book, even though this book isn't particularly well known. 13. What would you consider to be your holy grail of Lincoln books? As I understand the question, that is getting at, what would be, what's the Lincoln book I'm still looking for, or, have a hard time getting, or would really like to have that I don't have. And there aren't really any Abraham Lincoln books like that. I think for many people, probably the Holy Grail would be William Herndon's biography of Lincoln from the 1880s. William Herndon was Abraham Lincoln's law partner, and the research that Herndon would do would serve as the basis for many or much of the Abraham Lincoln biographies that are still being written today. Of course, it's a book that's not not in print anymore, but you can get different copies of it. I don't necessarily have a super strong desire to possess it, but I could imagine that many people do. And I did take a quick look for that the other day, and it did look like there was a genuine old copy of the book. I'm not sure, from what year, but it was in hardcover. I think one of the problems of trying to get a book like that online is not really being quite sure of what you're buying. But anyway, so that's probably the book that I would guess many people would say. I'm sure that there were books about Lincoln written in the early 20th century that are probably much sought after. But I thought it would be a good opportunity for me to talk about two books, a 2-volume set that I did get, that is one of the earlier works on Lincoln. It's The Life of Abraham Lincoln by Ida Tarbell. It was published originally in or through the McClure's magazine. Ida Tarbell was a muckraker, one of the emerging journalists of the late 1800s, early 1900s. She wrote about Rockefeller and his oil industry, and wrote a major expose on him. But she also wrote this 2-volume work on Abraham Lincoln, and I'm pretty proud of these 2 books. And these books date from 1928. So these books were written again, I think originally published in the McClure's magazine. They were published. The books were, I think, published in the late 1890s, around 1900, and this 2-volume set dates from 1928. I got those online a few years ago, so pretty proud of them. Pretty happy to have them. Number 14. Here's the big one. What are your top 5 Lincoln books? Well, I have probably mentioned a couple already, or at least one. I have already mentioned Team of Rivals by Doris Kearns Goodwin. So I would put her book. I would put that book in the top 5. Let's see what else I have here. I would include one of the more recent full biographies of Lincoln is A. Lincoln, a biography, written by Ronald C. White Jr. I think probably the best, biography of Lincoln that I've read. It's highly regarded. Steve Donohue also thinks highly of this book. I think I would have to put that in my top 5. This next book is not a book that I think is as well known. This is by Richard Cardwine. Lincoln: A Life of Purpose and Power. I have read this, but I've also listened to it via audio, and it's a book that talks about Lincoln's his political machinations to gain office and his political thought. There is more of a Richard Carradine has written other books about American Christian evangelicalism in the 1800s and 1900s, so there's more of a religious context, or more of a context of the religious world that Lincoln encountered, so I really like this book. I'm not sure I would call this sort of a pure biography. It's another book that's sort of more of a kind of more of a political book, about ideas and political issues than rather than Lincoln's personal or domestic life. So it would I think it would take its place along with Team of Rivals in terms of Lincoln, about Lincoln's political focuses, and again particularly his religious inclinations, how he responded to the influence of religion in politics. Rather, I think somewhat famously, Lincoln's the sole term that Lincoln served in the U.S. House of Representatives in the 1840s, he defeated the Democratic candidate Peter Cartwright was a Baptist or Methodist circuit rider, they called them. Preachers who went, who were circuit preachers. They preached in different. They weren't located in one specific city or town. They sort of rode a circuit, and so religious issues came up during that campaign. So Richard Carwardine's book is, I think, a good source of information about Lincoln's religious, how he dealt with religious issues and political issues in particular. So so that's three, which yeah, I think beyond those three, it's a little hard. It's a little hard to say what my other favorite Lincoln books were. But one book that I've enjoyed is this one, One Man Great Enough, by John C. Wall, Abraham Lincoln's Road to Civil War. It is about the life of Abraham Lincoln from his birth up through kind of the firing on Fort Sumter. It does not include much beyond that of Lincoln's presidency. So this is a sort of a rather unique book in that sense. But again, I've listened to this on audio, and I just sort of enjoy this book. I don't know how well it's regarded, but I liked it a lot. One Man Great Enough by John C. Wall. And I could include a couple other books that I have mentioned already, but just for the sake of being unique, I'll put forward this one. This is President Lincoln, The Duty of a Statesman by William Lee Miller. Miller was the author of Lincoln's Virtues, the ethical biography of Lincoln I mentioned earlier, in relation to Lincoln's personality. So if you read One Man Great Enough, which basically goes up through the first month of Lincoln's presidency, but doesn't include anything on the presidency beyond that, then I would then go right into this book, which is mostly about Lincoln as president. And so I enjoy this book too. I look forward to rereading it. So I would put those in my top 5. Finally, question 15. If you had to recommend one book to somebody who is interested into reading about his life, what book would it be and why? Well, I think I think the criteria for recommending a book like that would have to be kind of a cradle to grave biography, of which I have mentioned a few already, and because I think it's probably my favorite one-volume biography of Lincoln, I am going to again suggest A. Lincoln, a biography by Ronald C. White Jr. So that's it. This video has been almost 40 minutes long. If you're still watching, congratulations. Thank you. You went through a lot. This is by far, I think, the video I've put the most into. But very much enjoyed doing this tag and responding to these questions. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.